together, turned in circles till we're done. We found waves to work in stormy weather. Long may you run. Long may you run. Long may you run.
Welcome back, everyone, to clip 5 in a series of 5 clips covering a 138k flight in the English Lake District, undertaken by 3 vintage K6CR gliders. The 3 gliders were actually thrown by me on 3 different occasions. The first flight was in April 2021, and the second flight, which I flew so I could fly with the ghost of my flight from April 2021, was flown in late December 2022, and for reasons which we're about to talk about, I had to then go and do it a third time. So in the end, I made use of all 3 ghosts flying together to try and get an interesting video showing the differences between the way they flew and the outcomes and so on and so forth. Just to recap, the wind on this task is 253 degrees at 14 knots. The takeoff was from the airfield at Latrigg, which you can see as I look down there. You can see its little twinkling lights. It's a little hilltop that sits below much bigger hills, mountains all along here. We've just been gaining height on those ones back there. We'll talk about that K6 in a moment. And we then went back up there to the other side of that lake. You can see underneath the starboard wing Bathurst Lake for the start. We ran all the way down to Kendal, going past sort of Keswick, Derwentwater, I think that's Thirlmere, down towards Kendal, the other side of these mountains here, and all the way back up to turn Bassenthwaite at the top end of the lake back there. If you look back, you can just see Ghost 1. That's the flight. That's me flying in April 2021. He's about 5.5 kilometres behind me on task. That's assuming he's turned Bassenthwaite. He might have further to go, but at the moment that's his distance from me. And I have turned turning point 2 at Bassenthwaite, and I'm now heading for turning point 3 down at Ullswater. And I think that Ullswater is probably that little white patch on the landscape at about 11 o'clock. Don't know why it's white, because it's a lake, but it might be simply the way Condor has rendered it. Perhaps you think it's reflections on the water at this kind of angle to it. But it's to the left of that hill you can see on its own in the middle distance at about 11 o'clock. And this glider here is Ghost 2. This is me doing the first of my flights in late December 2022. And Ghost 2 got it badly wrong because he hadn't really studied the task that he'd originally flown about 18 months before, and had imagined that the last turning point was at Bassenthwaite, and then he would final glide to Latrigg. And it was only as he was going along very fast on the windward side of these mountains here to get back to Latrigg and thoroughly beat Ghost 1, who he was flying with at the time, that he realised his error. And he compounded his error by not staying on these windward slopes where he could have gained height easily. And I think that happened because he didn't want Ghost 1 catching up on him. He sort of thought he could risk pressing on and would pick up lift either on these slopes here, which were in the direction of turning point 3, and or by, while he was doing that, bumping into a nice cumulus he could jump to and climb in. But to cut a long story short, it doesn't go very well. He's a little overambitious. He probably gets a bit disorientated and imagines that this ridge here is more into wind than it is. Although I think he kind of knew that it wasn't fully into wind, but one way or another, I think he just couldn't get the height on it. And then as he had to make a decision to leave the last of these hills, of course, he then finds himself quite low over them and going to get caught in the lee as he heads off towards turning point 3 or to a cumulus he hopes to try and find lift under. So anyway, that's enough of that. Let's press the pause button, or the unpause button, and get flying. Right, here we go, and we're off. And I think what we're doing by going in this direction is we don't want to overfly the lee of these hills and get caught in downdrafts. Also, I mean, we're not far off heading for turning point 3 anyway, especially because the wind is going to blow us in the direction of the wind. And if you look at the PDA, the heading we've been given to fly on is pretty much the heading we're on. We're just curving around slowly. We're just making sure that we exit these hills in the right place. And we're also looking for a promising thermal, really, down towards turning point 3. We've got not that far to turning point 3, coming down to 14 kilometres, so it's not far off. But of course, once we turn around turning point 3, we've got to come back very much in an into-wind direction. It won't be fully into wind, but it'll be pretty much into wind. And this is a K6CR with a glide angle of 1 in 30 at a best glide speed of, I think, 48 knots. So one way or another, we'll have a certain amount of flying to do to get back. And we will need some height with which to do it. So sooner or later we have got to find a nice cumulus and get under it. And we're already only at about 3,700 above sea level, and we might be a little lower than that above terrain. We probably are, I think. So we do need to be focused on finding a climb, and we might have to settle for one that is not quite as good as we would want. I'm still trying to work out actually where turning point 3 lies in this landscape, because that white bit that we saw on the ground is not looking very much like it's anything to do with the lake. Because I wonder if it's an aberration in Condor 2's landscape map. I mean, you can get things like this. And incidentally, discussing that, I was seeing somebody on Facebook today who was talking about modelling a glider to fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And the PC that I'm flying this task on here in virtual reality, I built, it's my first one. I built it during COVID lockdown, and I built it to actually have a go at Microsoft Flight Simulator. But from what I see of the gliding side of things on there, it just doesn't match Condor 2. I mean, even if the landscapes might be remarkable in their detail, and of course they'll use a lot of processing power, no doubt, rendering them, Condor 2 really does seem optimised, and its pedigree just feels like real stuff intended for glider pilots. When I sit in virtual reality in this glider, and I used to own a share in a K6CR about 30 years ago, it all feels kind of right. The cloud texturing and the experience with where you find lift on windward ridges and the sink and that kind of thing, they all feel sort of like they would in real gliding. I'm not saying that Condor simulates all these perfectly compared to real life, but it has a pretty good go, and the overall experience, especially in VR, I find very realistic, and I'm quite happy to give up some of the detail in the landscape for the overall sense of immersion and reality I get from flying Condor 2 in virtual reality. And I think Condor 2, of course, is a lot less demanding on processing power. Now, what are we doing here? Are we sniffing under this cloud, hoping it might do something? Let's wait and see. Yeah, I think we're certainly thinking that we need to climb, really, even if it's not the best climb on the planet. But let's see how we go. You won't see this on the screen. There's Ghost 1, by the way, 13.5 kilometres behind us now. So yes, he must have been heading for turning point 2 and had to go around it. Now is, if he's getting closer, it means he's coming back. Where is he? Yeah, I think he's coming back towards us now, isn't he, I think? Probably busy trying to get left on those mountain slopes. And over at our 11 o'clock we can see Ghost 2. That's not going well at all. He seems to be very low over the flatlands. We're not doing great in this thermal. But again, I think we've got to hang on to it. And on the plus side, we are at least being drifted more or less in the direction of the turning point. Yeah, and it's picking up a bit, centering a bit. It's nothing stunning, but at the moment, I don't want a chance trying to go for something else. We could get into trouble. So I'm sticking with it. Frustrating, I'd have liked a better climb, but there's the way it goes. So yes, there's Ghost 2, low over there. Probably had a bad time coming out of the lee of those hills, getting into sync. You know, there's not much out there, a lot of blue out there, not much for him to choose from. So he must have had to commit to one particular prospect. He's probably trying to find the thermal associated with a cloud that's way above him, and just isn't finding it. Rather like I'm not even finding lift under this thermal. It just shows you it ain't always as easy as you might think. I'm looking up at this cloud now. It doesn't look particularly unhealthy. I think I'm just in the wrong place. But it highlights and this is true of real life as well, you know, when you're it's easier to actually get into a thermal when you're higher up and nearer the cloud base, because it's going to be closer to the cloud in terms of its position. But of course we've got a 14 knot wind which will be slanting a thermal from its ground source towards a cloud, and we've got to try and remember that to try and connect with it. So a lot of farting around here, but we've got to hang on, really, we've got to hang on, because there just ain't anything else that looks very good. And you see we're only 6 kilometres from the turning point, so other ones that you can see down there, even if you went for them, are beyond the turning point. And so, you know, and then they will be downwind of the turning point, so you've got to climb in them and then make up for the distance you've overshot the turning point by. So I think this is the right decision, sticking with this thermal. I don't know how much of the poor result is my flying and how much is the cloud, but it matters little. I've just got to calm down and stick with it. Meanwhile, he's not getting any closer yet, but he's a lot higher than me, so he's obviously building his height. He can be here in no time. So I'm not going to maintain my lead over him. But better that than land out. Looks like Ghost 2 is still trying. He must be going for the lift underneath that cloud there. But I know from getting very, very low in Condor that when you get very low, it gets very much a lottery whether you can pick up some lift and save yourself. I'm obviously having to try very hard and look in different places to find where this thermal lives. This is looking a bit better at the moment. This is looking like I might have moved into a better place. Let's see. So, yeah, just something I was going to say a while ago. You can't see it on your monitor, but it's in my VR headset. But there is a little kind of box that comes up when you're doing replays with a kind of fast forward, fast back and pause play option and things. And it's sitting there right in my field of vision where I want to look at things like the variometer and the altimeter. So I'm having to bob my head around if I want to see them. Yeah. Well, we're averaging 3 knots now, that's better. And we are drifting towards the turning point, so it's the least worst option, this really. This is a tricky thermal, I just can't really seem to get... it hints at having some good lift, but it just doesn't seem to hold up as you go around the turn. And this is probably because we have set the thermals on this task not only to average, but also to variable, so that they will be a bit of a lottery. And that happens in real life as well. And sometimes you've just got to stick with it and accept that this is not the best. But it's serving so okay. We're averaging 3 knots, we're up to 4,000 feet. They're stronger. This is another thing that can happen when you have a variable thermal. It can build with height, so that things pick up as you get higher. Conversely, when you get very low, they can be very difficult indeed to actually work and get away in. And we also seem to be over a bit of a mound here, a bit of a hill. And knowing Condor, it could well be feeding that into the equation in terms of the way it's giving us lift. Anyway, we're at 3.5 on the average and rising. Slowly getting nearer the turning point. I see that Ghost 1 is now gaining on us at pace. So we're going to lose our lead. Ghost 2, I have a feeling he's landed out. I think it's all over for Ghost 2. Bad luck, old chap. Shouldn't have let her, whatever you call it, pride get the better of you. And you should have settled for gaining some more lift on the on Skiddaw back there, and accepting that Ghost 1 would catch up in the process. Right, this is now picked up quite nicely. We're now getting 4.4 on the averager. Yeah, so sticking with this cloud was very much the right thing to do. And all the time we're drifting closer to the turning point, so this is quite a satisfactory strategy. And never mind that Ghost 1's getting closer, that's just life. Yeah, this strange whiteness, this is an aberration in Condor, isn't it? As we come around here and look at this, I mean, what is that about? It's got itself in a muddle, making all that white's down there. And similarly on those bits on the hillside, it's like it's put some hill fog or something on them. Very strange. "5,000 feet. Marked away because this cloud doesn't look that fantastic. There must be new cells or something getting going underneath it. It's very hard to know. I don't know in Condor whether some of these bits are new cells. That over the port wing there seems to have got going since we arrived here. But by the same token, I don't think it's anything to do with that cloud that we're climbing under. We're achieving a reasonable climb rate here now. This is quite acceptable. So hopefully we'll be able to take it upwards for a while yet, and with any luck, by the time we have to leave it, we'll be very close to the turning point. We can quickly round it. Might even be a cloud we can return to on the way back. See what the final glide indicator tells us. Ghost 1 closing on us rapidly. But of course, as he closes on us, he too is losing height. So we'll have to do a climb. But, of course, he may get luckier than us in terms of what he finds, as he gets down this way. There's clearly a nice cloud there. Average rate's dropped off a bit. I think have we decided to go to the turning point? No, we're still trying to, no. We're dithering, having a little dither now. I think we've decided to get around the turning point and then reassess things. Probably motivated a little bit as well because Ghost 1 is getting ever nearer. Yeah, I don't know what these strange bits that Condor sometimes puts on the landscape, these sort of white bits. There's a bit there, isn't there? That big bit there, when we saw from a distance. Poor Ghost 2 sitting in his field, hoping someone will come and get him. And all that stuff over there. It's very weird. It doesn't seem to change. So, otherwise you might think perhaps it's getting its clouds mixed up and putting clouds in the landscape. I don't know, a bit weird. Right, so 1 kilometre to the turning point, which I think is this end of Ullswater. Whether it's that pier, could be the pier or something, couldn't it? Penrith, that town over there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Right, so we're rounding the turning point and assessing where we've got to go, and there is right, so we're getting the PDA to show us final glide now, I think, and we're probably trying to think now about our best strategy. $16, $17K to go. I need to get this PDA onto the final glide screen. As you see, I'm not sure why I've left it on the screen. It might be that for the moment I'm heading towards whichever cumulus cloud looks promising, and oh, here we go, I'll put it onto the final glide screen now. So you can see we are minus 760 feet as a destination height for getting back to Lattrick, so we've got to find a climb from somewhere. I think that through 3012, when you compare it with the 4700 on the altimeter, gives you a clue as to the height above sea level that Lattrick is. So here's Ghost 1 coming over us. It looks as though I'm heading for that cumulus cloud, the left of those two there, because it looks younger and healthier and it's more in the right direction. And I might have to do a few turns under that just to top up. Meanwhile, let's have a look at Ghost 1 as he goes over us. And if he's a kilometre above us, which is more or less what he is, that means he... Oh, it's ridiculous, it can't be that high. No, I don't know why it's saying that. In the next year, I think. And there he goes, heading down towards the turning point. I'll be interested to look around to see what he does. We can follow him. You can tell from the distance indicator with the luck when he turns turning point 3 and comes back on us. Just going to keep looking. 2.3, 2.5. Excuse me. You couldn't do in a real cockpit. I'll tell you what, it's a bit of fun. We're going to stand up in our glider. It looks to be difficult because it mustn't fall over in the real world. So just stand up while we are lead out. So there you are. There's the tail feathers of a K6CR. And there is Ghost 1 heading down to the turning point. If you ever try this, it's quite a strange sensation in virtual reality, because you've got to try and maintain this sense of balance in the real world while the glider is sort of bobbing up and down in the airflow. So, you want to reach out and grab the wing to stabilise yourself, but of course you can't because it's the real wing. So here we go, 20.83, stopped moving away from us. And now that figure will probably stay fairly steady because he will be turning around, coming back more or less the same direction as us at more or less the same speed. So he's right at the turning point. I better sit down before we enter this thermal because that will really make me giddy. It's just... So, wow, there we go, here we go. You can see the rudder being worked, some up elevator into the turn to hold the height. Quite nice, keeping the tail even out of the horizon. Looking up down the wing. This is pretty cool actually. I hope this looks as good on the screen to you as it does to me, standing up doing it. This is great. You can see all the rudder and elevator input. Poor old Ghost 2 in the field. There's your man there. Obviously what I'm doing here is only taking enough to get onto sit down and more wibbly wobbly. It's made me go all wobbly. It really does. You try this in virtual reality, it's pretty unsettling. Right, let's get back into that cockpit. 3.8 on the averager. Settle back down, get comfy. Sorry about this squeaky chair, it's almost becoming a little bit of a trademark, isn't it, whatever you call it, you know, for me. Right, sorry about that, just need to get my headset lead out of the way as well. Right, 4 on the averager, destination height coming up to 0, but obviously we need a bit more than 0 feet to get back. The only thing is, you could take a slight view about just heading for the slopes a little short of Lattrig, knowing that there'll be lift on those. And if you're forced to, you could, you know, work those slopes a bit to gain a little bit of height before you push the nose forward, go across the finishing line, then come round to land. I seem to be, sorry, yes, this is what I can see what I'm doing. I'm pushing forward for another good-looking cloud. Perhaps to take a bit, I don't know, I'm not quite sure why I left that on this one. And interestingly, you see, your man there is gaining on me. I mean, he was 4.5 kilometres behind me a while ago, now he's only 2.5. I'd like to know why that is. Anyway, life's too short. Let's just fly our own flight and crack on with it. It might be that I flew forward to get a better idea of whether I was able to get above final glide as I moved forward, knowing as well that I had this thermaling option here and this quite good lift under here, and I don't want too much. I'm not going to take more than I have to, especially with Ghost 1 gaining on me. I mean, he's only 2 kilometres behind me now. There's nothing in this. You consider how far behind me he was at some point. You have to ask yourself, how did he catch me up like this? Because I thought I'd flown this reasonably okay, but on this last sector, he's really got the jump on me. And I don't really understand why, but never mind. And the only thing that perhaps is true is that he may be crucially lower than me, so he's now got to start doing his circling. And I will pretty soon, I hope, just crack on. I don't know, determined to take another turn. I suppose what you got to remember, of course, the worst thing of all is if you start landing out. He's actually going past me now. This is no good. How is this happening? But surely now he's having to start circling. Yeah, nothing is what it seems in gliding. One of the reasons he appears to be going past me is as I circle in the opposite direction to him, he appears to, of course, gain on me massively. Right, come on now, mate. You've got enough height. Get that nose down and go for it. Push it hard now. Don't forget I have McCready set at, well, you can see 5.1. So I should be able to fly quite aggressively and still maintain that height. You know, I could go more aggressive than I am, but I'm watching the DDH figure to make sure that it doesn't look like it's going to dip below 500. I always like to arrive at the end of a task over the airfield at a minimum of 500 feet. It just seems more seemly. I don't know what real competitors do in real life. I imagine the hot glass ships can come in very low and fast, knowing they can pull up and gain 1,000 feet and do a circuit no problem. But something like a K6CR in particular, you know, there's you can't. We talked about this earlier. It can't store the same amount of energy as a ballasted glass fibre plane that can fly efficiently at speed. Quite a good glide angle at speed, so it's a slightly different ball game. But we're doing pretty well here. We're coming in nicely. 600 feet. Let's see what the distance for Ghost 1 is looking like now. I can see the little blighter. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Well, he's still only a kilometre behind me. It's not much. I may have to do another climb or something, or a few more turns, but there's not much in this really, is there? Not much. Yeah, I'm out flying a bit speed-wise. So we'll make a bit on it, but it's not a lot. And it's possible back in April 2021 I was less disciplined about always getting back at 500 feet, so he could be saying to himself, I don't care how low I get there, I'll just go in fast and then pull around really tight and land. Who knows? Because after all, at that rig, all you've got to do is to pull round and get back onto those slopes to get a bit of height back if that's what you need to actually get your circuit right. About the dear old K6's max rough air is something like 80 knots, isn't it? Where's the rough air? 140 kph. What is that in knots? It's probably not much more than this. You're probably going about as fast as you'd want to go in a K6 if there's any rough air about. As you can see, we're just heading to keep that DDH figure above 500 feet. And as we come into the finish, yeah, we managed to make up some distance on Ghost 1. It's 3 kilometres behind us now. Rattling along here, nearly 90 knots in a K6, my god. 85, it's going it for a K6CR especially. Looks like we're allowing ourselves to get a little bit below 500 feet, but still. Only a tiddly bit. We've got a good bit of speed on. And then I think I have a cunning plan after we've crossed the finish. And I think when you actually fly this flight in Condor, you get a huge kind of crowd roaring round of applause as you cross the finish line, but that doesn't seem to actually happen when you're on the replay. It doesn't even give you much indication you have finished the task, but clearly the way I'm behaving shows I have. And we're 3 kilometres ahead of Ghost 1. I think my cunning plan now is to just get onto the slope and updraft. And this will be a chance to see what it's like when you join the slope low and it's not all kind of fully into wind. What have we got here? We've got up to 330, wasn't it? So we're about 80 degrees off the wind, is that right? So 0 to 0. Look at this. Naughty, naughty. Low, well, it's not low and slow, but just low. Low and not hugely good looking dishes. But now what we're trying to do is set ourselves up so we can station ourselves out here and watch Ghost 1 finishing. He's just going to finish. We're going to fly out with him as long as we're in lift. And we can watch him finish. And then I think the cunning plan might be to see if we can turn around to the left and converge with him and try and join him in the circuit, then open out our circuit to give him time to actually turn finals and land, and then land in behind him. So I guess he's finishing just now. Not far behind us. Amazing, really. Different strategies, different situations, but somehow rather not finishing that far apart. There's got to be an element of the lottery, isn't there, in all this? I mean, you know, if you happen to be lucky enough to be in the right place for the right thermal at the right time, can make up for some other bad stuff at another time. So we're turning in with him now, joining the circuit behind him. Here he is, Ghost 1. Wahey! I hope we find some of that lift he's just found, so we can hold off behind him and let him land. Interesting. Why did he manage to rise to better than us? Perhaps he was just flying slower and we've been pushing on a bit too fast. Perhaps I'm doing it all just so I can fool around like this and get really close to him. Go, so that's him going into land. This has worked out quite well. Now, because I kept that speed on as well, I can turn it back into height a bit, hold off, only going down to 0.5 of a knot, and we're high on the approach, so we should be able to just hold back. Only lands with an S turn or two, flying very slow, but this thing can fly pretty slow, as long as we're careful how we control it. Funny, although I'm only a passenger on this flight, you can probably tell from my head movements that I can't stop quite behaving like a pilot in charge, pilot in command, by looking back at the ASI and things and seeing what it's doing. It's taking a long time here. I'm surprised how long this last bit of the final is taking. Anyway, this is where audio varios are very useful, because you can listen to how well you're doing in the air while watching what's going on out there. I mean, I don't need to be looking back at the panel at all as a passenger, but I'm curious to see how well I performed when I actually threw the task. And my speed control seems reasonable, actually, because I suspect I was looking at a fair bit then as well, gauging what the first K6 was up to. So I've judged it now as I know where he stopped. I can attempt to land close to him. I'll probably do a pretty bad ground run, behaving very badly just to try and end up close to him, I suspect, but I can't remember. So here we go. Probably don't want less than 55 knots, do we? I don't know. It's pretty smooth looking air. I mean, 14 knots you might get away with less, but probably best to stay above 50 anyway. Thoroughly enjoyed this flight, full of interest. There's a lot to be said for flying a glider like this instead of something like a duodiscus. It's, I don't know, it's altogether more, very enjoyable really. I have to say it, there's something really nice about flying this kind of glider. And it's a beautiful little thing for turning tight in thermals, just like its real counterpart. And I'm obviously landing off the runway here because he's right on it, and they're only painted markings, so I don't really care. probably a pretty bad landing here as I attempt to just allow myself to be classy. Look, I've ballooned a bit now. I've got to turn it around hard. Right, well, that's okay. We're all pretty close together, despite my crappy landing. Fantastic. So that is the end of this 138k task. And what a jolly old task it was, except for Ghost 2, of course. He's stuck out in the field and is going to have to buy everybody a meal and pay for their fuel and buy them drinks and all kinds of things and be there till 1 in the morning trying to, and pay the farmer, who'll be very angry and want 500 quid to allow the glider to be taken out of his field. And then, of course, the field's probably wet and boggy and the car might get bogged down, or we'll have to carry the wings and fuselage out by hand separately. Oh, I have never done a field landing as a solo pilot. I did one in the back seat on one of the days in the two-seater competition, but of course it wasn't me having to fly it. And he did a good job actually, and it was very easy access to field. The ground was solid and it wasn't difficult to get a vehicle in, de-rig the glider and pull the whole lot out. But it can be pretty grim, people who've set off at the furthermost end of the task they've landed out, and people have had to drive for like 5 hours through traffic jams and getting there at 3 in the morning, and I never liked it very much. I only did a handful of cross countries, and the K6CR was 2 of them, and I always made sure the Met was showing pretty good conditions, and what I saw was pretty good conditions, good viz, light wind after a cold front moved through, so mildly unstable air, feels all cut back because you're well into summer and that kind of thing. Lots of landing options, but basically, as long as you didn't get silly, you really shouldn't be needing to land out. So I never did land out. Some will say, well, you're not a real pilot till you've landed in the field. Well, maybe so, but on the other hand, I got what I wanted to do done, enjoyed it, and didn't have to go through all that being stuck in a field at 3 in the morning lark. I really barely had the money to buy people meals and rounds of drinks anyway, and I had small children to get back to. Anyway, I'm rambling. Enough of this. I hope you enjoyed this series of clips. I think I might take a break after this. I've done rather a lot in rather a short time, and I want to get back to more of my music making and other hobbies, and actually maybe flying some more VR tasks, because I haven't actually flown one for a bit, but we're doing all these replays. So, and I'd like to go to other countries. I haven't done South Africa yet. Haven't been in Australia. I've done one in New Zealand, and I could make a video out of that. Done some in Scotland. I've done 1 or 2 more in Spain. There are other ones I can make replays out of, but I'm not quite sure what new they will add, really. So unless I see there's a huge lot of people loving these and wanting more of them, so do say so in the comments if you want me to do more. I think I'll probably take a bit of a break for now, but I've really enjoyed this video, this flight with these 3 K6CRs. A lot of fun. Anyway, look after yourselves. I hope 2023 is a good year for you, and like, subscribe and press the notification bell if you want to be informed when I next do something. I've got lots of other videos out there, as you know well, about 4 other different journeys that I've done: North Wales, Argentina, the Alps and the Andes. So if you haven't seen those, have a nip over and have a look at those. And as usual, when I take the visor off, it'll look like I'm, well, not bailing out of the aircraft because we're on the ground. It'll be like I'm falling out the side of the cockpit onto the ground, dazed and confused. Right, okay, bye for now. Oh, hello, it's only me again. I almost forgot. What I will be doing, I think, as well as these 5 clips, is I'll probably merge them into one video clip, but the outtakes from this flight. For instance, I have got the in-cockpit footage of Ghost 2 getting it all wrong and his final demise. There's a bit of naughty flying as I re-familiarise myself with the K6 and consider different ways to actually come off aero early and use the slopes to gain height. I might put some of that on. I think that's about it, really. If I could only get some of the air-to-air footage of Ghost 1 and Ghost 2 flying in close formation, that would be nice, because they did fly together well. But there's lots of other stuff you've seen on these, so you probably don't need that. Anyway, I really am taking the visor off now and going home. Bye for now.
Long may you run, long may you these changes have come. With your white wings shining in the sun, long